Felicia Marcus. Ms. Marcus was appointed by Governor Jerry Brown to the California State Water Resources Control Board in 2012 and designated by the governor as chair in April 2013. The board implements both federal and state laws regarding drinking water and water quality, and it implements the state's water rights laws. Thank you very much for being with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and thank you all for coming west. It's a privilege to join you all. You're an amazing grouping of people I deeply respect, and it's an honor to be with you today. I was asked to talk about the extreme drought that California and the West are experiencing and to offer some suggestions for what the federal government could do to be of assistance in the near future and the long term. The short answer is move from 20th century thinking and infrastructure to investment approaches and tools appropriate to the 21st century, all with an overlay of prioritizing efficiency and equity. In sum, first, 21st century investment. Help invest in the transition to more efficient and integrated 21st century water management, including green infrastructure. Take a 21st century integrated approach. Work with states, local government, and stakeholders to use water in a more sophisticated and integrated way to benefit ecosystems, agriculture, and domestic use. Third, 21st century tools. Develop and disseminate research, technology, and tools for efficiency and treatment using more up-to-date and transparent data and data analysis. The California drought is the worst in modern times. We've had 4 rough years, including one with the least snowpack in 500 years. We've had agricultural land fallowed, tens of thousands of people out of work, fish and wildlife decimated. Many rural communities have literally run out of water, and we've been delivering water to them in bottles and tankers, drilling wells, and running pipe. We've seen escalating tensions between stakeholder groups, and we've also seen drought angels who have risen to the occasion. In addition to these direct impacts, this drought is the Godzilla of a wake-up call for what climate change has in store for us. Climate change will bring us years like these more frequently in the decades to come. At a minimum, a few degrees rise in temperature means more of the precipitation we do get will fall as rain rather than snow. This is a huge deal in the West. In California, we rely on our snowpack for 1/3 of our storage in an average year. This is similar to other arid Western states. We depend on snowpack and infrastructure to store and move water to where it's most used and when it's most used, which is not where and when it falls. This means that today's conflicts between ecosystem, agricultural, and urban needs will seem like a picnic compared to what's to come if we don't adapt now. Some want us to simply write off one of those 3 uses. In fact, as humans, we rely on and need them all. I hope the platform embraces that concept. The natural world sustains us. We are a part of it. And I hope the platform declares that we can and must have a healthy and vibrant environment, a healthy and vibrant economy, healthy and vibrant agriculture, and healthy and vibrant people. Water is key to all of that. Fortunately, there is a lot that we can do to prepare for the Mack truck of climate change coming at us, and efficiency is first and foremost among them. Using less water to meet the same basic urban and agricultural needs is quite doable. Using water multiple times, like recycling and stormwater capture, it is very, very doable. Changing what we use it for is definitely doable. Witness the change out of lawns in Las Vegas and Southern California. And managing water in a more integrated way to make every drop meet multiple needs is doable, necessary, and starting to happen in more and more places. You'll see it in Philadelphia, and I encourage you to go look. The federal government can be of critical assistance in making this transition to a more resilient future. With respect to investment, the federal government helped local agencies make enormous strides in clean and safe drinking water in the 70s and early 80s to build modern infrastructure, largely to treat sewage and upgrade drinking water facilities. Those facilities are now largely outdated, including being pretty darn leaky, 10 to 30% of large urban systems, more in rural areas. Upgrading for environmental and public health protection while including leak detection and reduction, water recycling and stormwater capture, Smart sensors and smart meters can yield the next big wave of benefits for the 21st century, including job creation, but is expensive. Local and state governments are up for it, but need the help. The federal loan program needs a boost, yet we keep hearing that it's at risk. It also needs flexibility to foster green infrastructure and put an even greater focus on disadvantaged communities. 21st century approach is an attitude. Green infrastructure for the 21st century has tremendous potential as cities are moving towards a one water model, moving beyond traditional single-purpose projects to use scarce local resources for projects that do quadruple or quintuple duty. Capturing water, for example, in green spaces to move water not out to waterways where it carries a concoction of urban pollutants, but rather where it can percolate into groundwater basins and be tomorrow's supply. So we can get flood control, we can get water supply, we can get water pollution prevention, and livable urban communities, which should also be an important part of the platform, out of the same system and same drop of water. There are efforts to do the same in more rural areas where the same drop of water necessary for a fish in one location can later become water for a farmer after it's done its work for wildlife, or where habitat restoration can bring back the biodiversity we've lost and depend on. But these are complex efforts and require governments and stakeholders at all levels to come together and deal with complexity, uncertainty, along with some trial and error. There is a key role for the federal government here, top-down regulator at times, and sleeves rolled up partner in others. 21st century tools double down on research and technology, promote and accelerate innovation. That can include remote sensing, lower cost leak detectors, smart meters, bioremediation techniques, or better weather prediction models so water managers can keep more water in storage versus managing by date and dumping water to avoid flooding that may never come. It can mean remote sensing, restoring flow gauges and other things so that we can better manage our waterways for fish, wildlife, farmers, and households in real time. Better systems to access big data and analyze it with transparency for all can also be transformative in better management and in garnering public engagement and support. Better and less costly treatment technologies of all sorts, but especially for drinking water, particularly in disadvantaged communities, are essential as we discover more and more contaminants to treat, and the cost escalates beyond what small communities will ever be able to afford. And finally, an overlay on all of it to prioritize disadvantaged communities is essential. We're doing that with our bond and loan funding, and we are in the midst of gearing up with bond dollars and other new tools to tackle the heartbreaking issues of communities who don't have access to clean, safe, and affordable drinking water, drought or not. California enacted the nation's first human right to water law. It directed state government to prioritize the issue and has led to important funding and other actions with far more yet to be done. It would be tremendous to have the platform do the same. Thank you for allowing me to join you, and I'm happy to work with you as you complete your task.
Thank you very much. Questions? Ms. Browner?
Thank you, and thank you, Felicia. That was very helpful. As the state's water czar, how much,
Well, I drought
from
now.
one czar to another, how much efficiencies were you all able to achieve during the most severe time of the drought?
Well, a tremendous amount. There's more in my written testimony. In urban California cut back 25%, which is enormous when you think about it.
And that's
20
business and commercial and
It's
residential?
by water agencies, all large urban water agencies. We have about 411 of those that serve over 3,000 people. It's about 90-something% of the water agency volume in California. We've got thousands of water agencies, many of them very small. And they were able to cut back from 2013 levels largely by reducing outdoor landscape watering, but also because there was a community, communities rose up to try and save water because they knew it was the right thing to do, particularly at a time when fields were fallowed, people were out of work, and they were hearing about rural communities who were without water. It took a while to get going, and we did have to use top-down regulations to get it going, but the public, once we got the data to them, and we put that data out transparently, which is part of that 21st century thinking, they rose to the occasion remarkably. So we can retrofit ourselves for a more resilient future, but we've got to get off our butts and do a lot about it.
Thank you.
Mr. Gunnels.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and I want to applaud the state of California in your efforts for all the innovative things that California is doing to conserve water. My question is, a lot of testimony on fracking, and my understanding is that it takes 160,000 gallons of clean water to frack a single well. And with California doing all of the positive things in innovative things to conserve water on the one hand, why would we allow big gas companies to consume so much clean water on the other hand in terms of fracking? The second thing, I just want to reiterate the question on earthquakes. Oklahoma, for example, we've all seen a massive spike in earthquakes in Oklahoma due to hydraulic fracturing. And I'm just wondering how concerned California is for a spike in earthquakes in your state by the continued use of hydraulic fracturing. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. I'll take those in order. I think the amount of water, especially clean water, varies from place to place. I think water is water, but a lot of the fracking that occurs in California occurs over saline basin. It's not using fresh, clean water, so it's slightly different, and the amount used is frequently recycled. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying it's not those. I couldn't say those numbers are correct for much of California. Part of what we did in looking at is, we haven't picked and chosen exactly what people use water they have a right to for. Some people wanted us, for example, to ban bottled water. Well, it takes more water to make a beer than to make bottled water. I'm not going to ban beer. So it's just, there's just a lot of, it depends on the circumstances, the location, and water. It's actually in California a very, very small percentage of our water use. That doesn't mean that all water use shouldn't be used as wisely as possible and recycled as often as possible, but it's less a drought issue than it is just that the overall larger issue of making sure that our regulatory scheme is tight enough, and we are in the process of tightening up our water management scheme more generally, just as every other state should be, particularly as we recognize how vulnerable we are and how scarce the resource is. So it's on a continuum, depends on the circumstances. With respect to seismicity, I'm not a seismic expert, but I think Mary's answer was largely correct at the moment, which is we've had a large-scale oil and gas activity in a general area for many, many, many years, which tends not to be where it is. I think part of why we came up with such stringent regulations, it's known as SB4, and we have very, very tight regulations right now. We're doing all kinds of groundwater basin monitoring that I don't have for any other industry, actually, where we're going to have real data ahead of time, and there are pretty strict regulatory functions, largely in the Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal, but with much more engagement from the water boards than had been the case in the past. And especially as it moves into new areas and other areas where there may well be seismic risk, that should be absolutely something that's expected. We got these tough regulations because of a threatened mass expansion of fracking well outside where it had been, which tends to be over old saline sea. It's not everywhere, but it's just where the mass of it is. But so we got this very tough regulatory scheme in advance, just as we argued that people would have wanted a much tougher regulatory scheme in advance of MTBE in their water, or ask anybody near any Superfund site. So we've been trying to be as tight as we can on all kinds of regulation, including agriculture, which the federal government can't go to, but which is where we're going right now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Booth.
Happy to work with you.
Mr. Booth.
I'd like to call attention.
One last question.
No, don't leave yet. I'd like to call the attention of my colleagues here to something very, it's a big theme that may be missed when we deal with all the specifics. We've heard testimony from these outstanding public servants, Felicia and Mary, top quality public servants. We've heard testimony from people who are leaders of grassroots movements. I'd just like to remind the committee that both of those groups are necessary for solutions to the problems that we're trying to define here in the platform. And both of those, dedicated public servants and grassroots movements, are scorned and abused by the other political party, by the Republican Party. And so when we write our platform and we talk not only about what our goals are, but the means to get there, we should be affirmative about how the combination of the intensity of the movements that have brought so many people here and the dedication of the public servants like these witnesses, the last witnesses that we've heard, are both essential to getting to solutions.
I could not agree more. You're absolutely right. And I'm sure we will do just that. Thank you very much.